Day 770 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So, starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 445,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 670 in the past day. Then as for hardware losses, 9 tanks, 18 APVs, a whopping 29 artillery, and 1 air defense system. Noting that when enough of these systems have been destroyed, that will truly be a debilitating state of affairs for Russia. Of course, we can already see that many Ukrainian drones are already passing through Russian airspace unaffected, unabated, or uninhibited already. And they're not even flying at breakneck speed. It's almost like all of those long-standing and well-reported military corruption fiascos inside of Russia is slowly making it go through a military deindustrialization-like process. Then we'll head to the map and we'll start out in Russia as explosions and fire engulfed a grain depot in the Rostov-Don Oblast, likely leaving Russia to wish they had never left that grain deal agreement in the first place. Talk about your chickens coming home to roost. Then moving to Nizhny-Kamsk in Tatarstan of Russia, as in follow-up to the Russian oil refinery and Shahed drone production facilities, those hits from a couple of days ago, which, by the way, was a new Ukrainian record-breaking drone distance they covered. Russian media released footage of the alleged drone remnants that evaded Russian air defenses. And also note, we were very recently provided a photo of the Ukrainian E-300 Enterprise drones, which may have been one of or some of the drones that were used in these recent events. Although there was another more Cessna-like drone used at the Shahed plant, which is believed to have been a weaponized light aircraft, with numerous sources citing or identifying now the make as the base for the Ukrainian-made A-22 Foxbat ultralight aircraft. But as for these other drones we see right here, they are truly massive in comparison to all of the Ukrainian drones that we've seen to date, with the exception of the Foxbat now. And specifically, these ones have a 300 kilogram warhead, which is not far off from a Storm Shadow warhead size, about 2/3 the size, and it's about 3 times the size of a HIMARS rocket's warhead. So these are certainly extremely compelling developments in Ukraine's long-range UAV development projects, which signifies a major shift in Kyiv's offensive capabilities. Then we move briefly to Kursk, as yesterday a large-scale fire broke out, reportedly due to Ukrainian drones. However, at the same time, local authorities stated that all of the 4 flying drones were shot down, as per their usual deflection announcements or their procedures on situations like these. Although little more is known about the exactitude of that event. Then headed into the Ukrainian map today, into the Donbass, as Russian forces attempted another mechanized push just east of Terny, suffering some heavy losses. The formation was funneled down a single road, with Ukrainian forces dropping a massive mixture of well-sighted artillery, FPV munitions, and ATGM fire on the group. And in the mix for that event, we also saw a 2022 modification of a Russian T-72 tank destroyed as well. Then headed further down the map, as Russian forces continue their encroachment into Berdichi, which is on the Avdiivka axis, so we'll just zoom in right there. Then just south of here, although this event was from yesterday, this next one, as Russian forces made quite the salient move on the northern road headed in the western direction near to Pervomayaska. And as you could imagine, occupying a salient move can certainly be a vulnerable position. But the thing is, even if successfully sustained, it can become quite the costly event in terms of armor and manpower losses. as newfound protruding positions like those are able to be struck from most angles of attack, as Russia appears to waste no man to make these sorts of movements. Then, somewhere in the east, we saw the destruction of a bridge by way of the AFU ground drone known as the Ratel S. And we saw the prototypes of these drones about 3 or 4 months ago, with this event possibly the first instance of us seeing it performing a detonating action in the field. Then, also in the east, we saw a Ukrainian FPV munition equipped with a thermobaric warhead flying into a stated Russian-held house, demolishing it. Now, upon zoom out, you'll notice it's actually the only standing structure at the larger position from where Ukrainian scout drones noticed Russian soldiers entering, which is likely what happened here. And this should be a lesson already learned, as it's an incredible safety risk to position yourself in the only freestanding structure in an environment that has no shortage of Ukrainian birds. Then, we saw even more infrared footage of a Ukrainian SAM, possibly another UK-supplied ASRAAM, intercepting a UAV. Then lastly, we saw Ukrainian soldiers from the National Guard destroying a Russian TOS-1A heavy flamethrower system. And for a while there, Russia was losing an impressive 2 to 4 of these per week. Then it went down to about 1 a week, then 1 every other week, and now even less than that. Which is all pretty consistent with expected Russian inventory of these platforms, said to be about 40-45 in total. But it's their short 6,000 meter range for this destructive weapon that is truly their Achilles heel in this drone warfare landscape. Then headed across to some news for today. So Germany has allocated 576 million euros to the second part of the Czech-led artillery shell initiative, with this amount to purchase 180,000 shells for Ukraine. And in this instance, Greece will become a key supplier of the shells in this phase of the plan, providing ammunition from its army warehouses. The munitions include various calibers of shells, fuses, and propellants that can be safely removed from Greek inventory. And impressively, these transfers can take place immediately, with the total value of Greek supply, or the Greek supply portion of the ammunition and equipment, reaching 185 million euros worth. Then in some other news, and in Kyiv, President Zelensky and Finnish President Stubb signed a 10-year bilateral security agreement between the two nations. The deal includes long-term military and financial assistance, cooperation in politics, finance, reform, and humanitarian efforts. Finland will also help to rebuild Ukraine's energy sector, assess environmental damage, strengthen border and critical infrastructure protection, and provide medical treatment for Ukrainian troops. Finland also announced its 23rd defense aid package during the visit, worth 188 million euros, bringing its total military support for Ukraine to around 2 billion euros now. Then moving across to something of a Russian hardware update. So according to Ukraine's military intelligence, as of March, Russia has about 100 Su-35 fighter jets and another 100 Su-34 jets, plus 7 A-50 early warning and control aircraft. But these figures are likely to be something of an overestimate based on a lot of other details that we already know. For starters, 2 A-50 AWACS radar airplanes were already well reported as being destroyed, and those other 7 of 9 are so dilapidated and so cannibalized for parts that it is truly questionable for the actual number of operational AWACS planes in the fleet, if there is indeed any more. Not to mention 2 entirely new crews needed to be trained and replaced, if you know what I mean. Then as for the Su-34 and 35 jets, 200 odd were stated, but the scenario for operationally capable jets is another story and would likely stand at about 60% best case scenario, but realistically drop at least another 20% from that figure for these overutilized and thus aging Russian planes. Likely also cannibalized for parts in an effort for the assistance with continually needed maintenance to operate their aircraft fleet. And I believe Russia previously stated they could produce 3 a year. But with the shockingly high amount of high-end Western tech in these planes, which held under the weight of economic sanctions now, it's genuinely possible that they're just not making even one more of these planes per annum anymore. Then in some related sanctions news, Novatek, Russia's largest LNG producer, has suspended production of its Arctic LNG 2 project due to sanctions and shortage of specialized gas tankers. The project, which aimed to begin deliveries in Q1 of this year, faced Western sanctions and a lack of ice-breaking tankers. Only 3 suitable vessels have been built so far. As such, natural gas production fell sharply in February due to delayed LNG shipments, and ultimately the suspension is a blow to Russia's own stated goals of capturing a fifth of the global LNG market by 2030, and indeed just the latest in a series of critical blows to the Russian industry since the invasion of Ukraine. Then in some other news, and in a stunning revelation, the Czech government has uncovered a Moscow-funded propaganda network aimed at influencing European politics and swaying public opinion against supporting Ukraine. The operation, centered around the Voice of Europe website, involved paying pro-Russian politicians ahead of the European Parliament elections. Hundreds of thousands of euros were funneled to politicians from Germany, France, Poland, Belgium, and the Netherlands, and not the least of which Hungary as well, both in cash and cryptocurrency. The scheme sought to amplify voices opposing arms deliveries to Ukraine, portraying it as the quickest path to ending the war. Now, European leaders have confirmed the involvement of MEPs, which is members of the European Parliament, calling the revelations a blow to Russian propaganda. The network's key figures include Viktor Medvedchuk, probably a name you've heard before, a Kremlin-linked former Ukrainian oligarch, and Artem Machevsky, a media manager who previously worked for one of Medvedchuk's TV channels. Surprise, surprise. Then in some other news, the Crimean Bridge will be destroyed in the first half of 2024, said a high-ranking official of Ukraine's main Directorate of Military Intelligence in an interview with The Guardian. And where an event like this happens, the destruction of the bridge would deal a significant blow to Russia's ability to supply its troops in Crimea and southern Ukraine, and an upcoming event like this could indeed be a shaping operation for Ukraine to actually take Crimea back. Now, Ukraine performed some significant damage to the Crimean Bridge in October of 22 and July of 23. As a result, the bridge, used as a military logistics platform especially, has never been the same since, with but a fraction of the throughput of military equipment making its passage through the railway portion of the bridge since those events occurred. But true to also say, Russia's Soviet stockpiles are not what they used to be either when they first invaded Ukraine. But back to this story, the first half of 2024 means practically any day now, unless of course it's just one big psyop, to force Russia to reposition all of their precious in number air defenses to be more or less concentrated into this one region, making for a Michael Jordan-style headfake where the AFU then proceeds to take out a vast array of critical military assets within Russia itself. But my money's on probably both scenarios outplaying themselves in one way or another. Then headed to a quick funny to round it all off for today, guys, so Cope cage on steroids. Perhaps the copest of cages so far, with this ancient 60-plus-year-old Russian T-62 MBT spotted in the field, outfitted in such a fashion in a desperate attempt to protect it from the relentless onslaught of Ukrainian drones. It's like a double-decker bus, and I don't care how much camo they've used on this latest monstrosity, it's now impossible not to spot it in the field, which sticks out like a sore thumb. It actually looks like it's made from paper mache. Of course, the Russian tankies likely spent several weeks, if not much longer, in the rears making this quote-unquote combat-capable tank, at least in their eyes. But with the AFU using just a couple of those newly designed high-speed drones in parallel or in a series, even just a double-charged Javelin ATGM, then weeks to months of work will likely be demolished in mere seconds. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Please continue to like and comment. If you're willing, subscribe as well, if not already. And I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.